Hello guys and welcome back to a new video. So today we're gonna talk about some big mistakes that almost all new beginner filmmakers are actually doing almost every time. So let's go through the list right now. So the first thing on my list is actually about the frame rate. So to have a really good frame rate, I will give you the good tips right here, and that is to shoot in 24 FPS. And that is actually the one that real movies are using most of the time, so you cannot get closer to cinematic video than with this. And also another cool thing is that with 24 FPS, it's gonna have the most natural movement blur that there is, which is really nice. But if you are working with something that you're gonna slow down a project or anything, then I suggest you using 60 FPS or higher, because then you can just slow it down to half of the speed in your program or more, depending on what frame rate you're using, because we all live for this slow-mo shots sometimes. So if your project is gonna be mostly of you slowing down a lot of stuff, then I do recommend you to shoot the whole thing or almost the whole thing in 60 FPS, because you're gonna slow it down anyway. You cannot slow down like the 24 FPS, because then it's gonna be choppy and stuff like that. If that's not your goal, then I would not recommend it. The second mistake I see people doing, using the wrong lens at the wrong time, for example. So most of the time, if you're gonna shoot something that is you're showing off a big area and you want most things in focus as much as possible, then you should use a wide angle lens. These are usually between 15, can be lower, and 24 millimeters. That is the range for usually the most of the wide angle lenses, and the lower it is, the wider the shot will be. So in that sense, and which is very good with the wide angle lens, is actually that if you are very new with focus and actually have shaky footage and you don't have a gimbal and stuff like that, it is very forgiving to use a wide angle lens, because in this one, for example, you're having a really wide picture, and that makes everything come into focus if you're not really focusing in on something and are a bit closer to the subject itself. Then they're actually pretty good at just focusing on that specific thing, even though it's gonna be a wide picture. It looks really cool. And because it is very wide, if you have shaky footage, it's easier to fix it in post, or actually to not see it so much. And also, if you're a beginner at using gimbals, for example, then it is also very forgiving to use a wide angle lens, because it's not gonna show the shake as much. I've used my lens here. It is the Sigma 16mm, for example. It does not have in-lens stabilization, so it's only in the digital when I'm usually out and about, and maybe I use that with or without a gimbal. So why don't you just use the wide angle lens every time you do a shoot? Well, the answer is pretty simple. You cannot just use one lens all the time, depending on what you're shooting, of course. But most of the time you will need to have something else in your arsenal to make your filmmaking as good as possible. So, for example, you can use a kit lens. This here is a 15 to 45 millimeters. It usually comes with most of cameras when you're buying them, if you're having a kit. But what I do recommend is having really wide angle lens, and then also purchasing a zoom lens, which is from 55 millimeters and up to maybe 200 millimeters. So why you're using this is because when you're using something between 55 millimeters and around 80 millimeters, then that makes faces look as natural as possible. Because if you come close and personal with a wide angle lens to someone's face, they will be very distorted, and their face is gonna be smeared out and look much unnatural. So that is why you're using a higher millimeter lens when shooting, for example, faces and very close-ups like that, to make it look as natural as possible for the human eye. With a zoom lens, maybe you cannot come into the action as much as you would like to. Pop up that zoom lens and you can be far away from your subject and still have a crispy, really nice image. And also you will have a really nice blurred background or bokeh in your footage while you're using a zoom lens. The downside of this is it's very hard in the beginning to get stable footage while you're zoomed in. So in that case, have a lens with stabilization and use it on a gimbal. But if you're a beginner, it's really hard to even use a zoom lens with a gimbal. So this is something you should train and use often before maybe you're trying to get the clients with your zoom lens on the gimbal. And here, example, we have a zoom lens, for example, and then we have more of a normal kit lens sitting here on my desk. So if we move forward to the next tip, that is number 3, which is the mistake of poor lighting. Poor lighting is something we're all gonna struggle with in the beginning, and that is making the results really bad when you're starting out. Most of us don't know how to handle light and stuff like that. So for example, right here in my room right now, I do have one key light here, which making the most of the light coming and hitting my face here. Then I do have like a backlight, which is more of an orange color in this case. And then I actually have a little small light here on the side that will light up a little bit of my side with the same color temperature that the light behind me has. And this is to make me stand out a little bit more from the background than it would if I just turned everything off. So I will show you an example. This here would be the video if I did not have my key light, but as you can see, there is a small light on my side here that you can see, and also the key light in the background, and this makes a big difference. So that is why we are using a key light to highlight the person itself, like max, and then we have everything else around us to make us stand out as much as possible on the footage. So what are the different types of bad lighting that you can do? Well, one of them is just having bad placement. So for example, if you're having it straight in front of you, then it's gonna be very flat type of shadows. You're not gonna have a really pleasant type of image, for example. So this here, I have it on around 45 degrees away from the camera to make a little bit of shadow casting on the other side of my face. And that is why I'll also have a light on the other side to comfort that a little bit so that it's not totally dark on this side. That is how you can play around with light to make it much better. And for example, you want to have as big light as possible showcasing your subject, because otherwise you can get in trouble with harsh light. And usually harsh light is not something you want most of the time, because it can be really showing up on your face. So if I have my hand very close here, this is a very harsh light or shadow that is coming up on my face, and you want it to be as soft as possible for yourself. If you are doing something wrong, or maybe you're even shooting outside in daylight, for example, many of you will know this. If you're shooting in midday, there is a pretty big chance that you will actually get hit by raccoon eyes. That is when you're getting shadows cast under your eyes like this. So it's only gonna be very dark under your eyes, and that is absolutely not flattering to have. And I see many filmmakers and photographers actually doing this mistake a lot. So if you don't have fancy lighting outside or anything else, do buy a really cheap reflector. They're $20 or €20, whatever you want to use as your currency. Super easy to have, and that's gonna make the light bounce so much better around your subject. So one of the last things I want to take up today is actually audio. And audio is basically half of the experience, if not even more, because you can have a really bad video with good audio and people will still love it. But if it's the other way around, with a video with bad audio, well, people are gonna lose the interest pretty fast. With that said, you are gonna have to use a really good microphone on your camera to make people hear you really clearly, and so they can also not feel this sound is really irritating to listen to. So that's why you need to have a good microphone. So something I do recommend to have is at least have a shotgun mic on your camera itself, and then maybe have a lav mic also, so you can put on someone's clothes or anything else. And these can be both wired and wireless. And if you want to jump up even higher, you can use a microphone that you can have on your desk while you're talking. And then you can actually have a boom mic that is usually outside of the frame, staying outside of the frame, over the top of the person talking. And that's basically the best type of sound that you can get for not having the microphone inside the frame. And with audio also, there comes something called sound design. And that is something that you use in your videos to make it more emotional to your audience, to feel some kind of feeling or actually get immersed into the video so much more. And I will show you a short little example of this. First, I will show you without audio, a video without audio, and then I will show you one with sound design on top of it. And you can then decide yourself which one do you enjoy the most. Let's go. Looks like it's gonna be a really beautiful day here in Sweden today, and we're gonna have about 35 degrees. So let's just put on this really nice track and enjoy your day. So as you can hear there, well, in my opinion, absolutely the second option is gonna be the go-to that you want to use. And there you can also hear that sound is making a big difference. You can hear a radio, you can hear the car, you can hear everything inside the car and everything else. That is really nice to add on in your video, because maybe it's something you're not gonna think about, but when you do, it's gonna make the video into another level. Then we have my last mistake, number 5, which is storytelling and not showing enough emotion, for example. So to do this in a really good sense, then you will have to plan your videos much better. So what you do, you plan your videos instead of just go out and shoot random stuff, like everyone just wants to go out, but you're gonna end up in your editing room and you just have a bunch of footage that is decent or just totally useless, and you're not gonna use it and you've wasted everyone's time. So what you want to do is pre-plan the shoots. What is the type of video I'm creating? What is the goal of this video? And what is the emotions that I want to give my audience? Because if you don't have these things correct, then probably your audience will feel like the wrong emotion or no emotion at all in a certain moment where you feel, okay, this is the big moment of the video. And it totally flops because maybe you didn't have the right shots to tell the right story for that moment. And also, if you do plan out your video, like everything is planned and perfectly shot, okay, not perfectly shot, but everything is shot in the direction that you want to and leads up to the main story, then it's gonna make it super easy for you to actually edit it afterwards. Because if you don't, you're gonna have so much longer time editing, because you're like, okay, maybe I should put this clip here because now I don't have anything there, and then you're just sitting there and you just want to, close your computer and just leave it for the day. You're gonna lose your motivation. So I've been there. Don't do the mistakes. Do plan your videos, and also make sure that you know what your story is gonna be for and what emotions you want to tell. And for God's sake, use the sound design to enhance this feeling for your audience. So with all that said, you now have a basic understanding of how to create videos in a good sense for both yourself, your audience, and of course your clients, so they make that really nice juicy money. For example, if you want to go full-time on your filmmaking career. And while you're editing, of course you want to choose like the footage that is the one that you really are proud of, because that's gonna make you like, wow, this project was super good and I'm super proud of it because I chose all of the footage that I'm really proud of that I have done myself or with my crew. So guys, with that said, go out there and create amazing footage. And also, if you want to hang out a little bit more, well, I do have a video right here that I absolutely recommend you to watch if you really hunger for more filmmaking content like this video today. If not, well, at least please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And also, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.